Hey there, what I see is people letting their businesses run their lives versus them leading their business to love their life. I see this in corporate jobs, and I see where we step into expectations that other people have of us that do not honor us and allow us to lead our own life. Welcome to this episode, and I'm glad you're here to listen.
From the corners of my mind is where I find my sanity.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser. I am here with, I don't want to say an old friend because you're not old. I'm with a friend that I've known for a long time, way back in college. Robyn Godfrey and I used to be Tatum. We're sorority sisters in Warrensburg, Missouri. At the time, it was called Central Missouri State University, the Mules. Don't ask me what it's called now because they changed names and I never remember. But we were both AO Pi's, Alpha Omicron Pi's at that college, and kind of grew up a little bit together. And then Robyn has come to Sandpoint a few times, and just most recently this summer we had 18 of us all together in Sandpoint, and that was a blast. And we decided then, we were talking and I'm like, I need to have you on my podcast. And Robyn's like, oh my gosh, that's been on my bucket list. So it worked out perfect. And part of why Robyn intrigues me is, Robyn, you show up unapologetically who you are, and you're very solid in who you are. It doesn't mean that shit doesn't happen, right? Oh, sorry. I know you said your mom's listening. Like, you show up unapologetically, you know who you are, and it doesn't mean that you don't have tough stuff that happens in life, but you make a decision and you go forward and do those things. And one of the things that's really intrigued me, because I don't think in college you were a big runner, were you?
No.
Okay, I was going to say, I didn't think so. We won't go into the college stories, but now you've taken up running, you run marathons, you've run the Boston Marathon. Like, there just is some really cool things that you're doing in your life, and you're leading a life that you've created and is lit up. And so I want you to take a minute to introduce yourself, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what you've done since college and where you're at and what's led you to this point. So introduce yourself to the listeners.
Well, thank you. It's so exciting to be here. Like I said to you yesterday, it's a dream come true to be on a podcast. I'm an avid podcast listener of all things podcasts, so to be on one is amazing. I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri. I moved to the DC area right out of college. Worked for the government for a while. That really wasn't for me. So I moved into the private sector, been in corporate America for a long time. I've been in the sales profession, and I love sales. I love people. I've always been fairly active as far as I played tennis and I went to the gym. And even in college, when I wasn't really exercising a ton, I kind of took up tennis later in college, and I really enjoyed it. And I've always been very active. I was started going to the gym and things like that. So I wasn't really a runner then, but I was always doing something. When I was a kid, I was always on my bike. I've always been kind of an explorer that way. I love to go out and find things and, see where my surroundings are and all that sort of thing. And running is kind of that way. It's kind of an explorer type activity that you can say, oh, let me go over here and see what's over here, or go look at this or that. So that's one of the reasons why I love it. So
yeah. And okay, so Robyn, let's talk about this. And this running, it's not really an obsession. I wouldn't call it that, but this running, like, it's almost feels like to me when I talk to you, it's like a spiritual thing for you. Mm-hmm. And it is this journey, right? Like you're exploring a little bit. And so, like, there's like couch to 5K, which is my description right now. And then there's this like, yeah, I'm going to run for fun. And then there's this like, yeah, I'm going to run marathons. So how did this start for you? And did you go straight from, yeah, I'm going to start running and go run marathons? Or was it a progression? Like, tell us.
Definitely a progression. Yeah.
Tell us what happened. What made the decision for you?
So, I think a lot of, this happens to a lot of us when we get into our 40s, the weight started kind of coming on. And I'd always been like a rail, thin my whole life. And then, when I hit 40, it was like, okay, I got to do something different because I'm, the weight was coming on, and I wanted to, I don't know, I just was tired of playing tennis, wanted to do something different. And a friend of mine asked me to run a 10K with her. And it's one of the biggest 10Ks in the country. It's in Charleston, and you run over the Cooper River Bridge, and it's a beautiful race. And So I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. And I mean, I don't do things halfway. And so I thought, so I trained for a year to run 6 miles. And I started out on a treadmill, and I would run for a minute and I would walk for 3 minutes. And it was like so hard to run for a minute. And even now, after I've done everything I've done, I am still not a fast runner by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, I just started like everyone else, where you just start running a little bit. And then once I got off the treadmill and I started running outside, I was like, okay, let me see if I can run to this point and back. And then I would go a little further next time, and maybe I can go all the way around the block. And can I run the whole time? And so, yeah, I just started doing that, where I would run a little bit. And then when it came to race day, I had signed up so early. I was literally in the front of the race, like in the first corral, right behind like the elite African runners. So they were in front of me and no one else. And so when I took off and started running, and it was just so amazing. And we ran over the bridge and we ran through the streets of downtown Charleston, and everybody's cheering for you. And they have funny signs, and it's just like this amazing, I felt like I was in the Olympics, and I was hooked from then on, because I wasn't even a fast runner. I wasn't an elite African or whatever, but these people were still cheering for me and were like so supportive. And it was just, and then of course you get the runner's high afterward, but it was so much fun. And I was like, I want to keep doing this. So I didn't start out running marathons. I never did a couch to 5K. I just started on a treadmill running every 3 minutes for a minute.
Yeah.
I felt like I could go further and do more. So yeah, I don't, to this day, I don't worry about how fast I'm running or who's doing what next to me. I do this for me. And so I love it. And I've kind of surrounded myself with a lot of people that are doing it. And so it's easy to get caught up in, oh, let's go do this because you're doing that. And so find yourself signing up for things and stuff that maybe you hadn't planned on doing. So, but yeah, that's kind of how I got started.
Okay. So I heard a couple things here. I heard you talk about milestones. And so like anybody listening, regardless of what you're doing, you don't have to be a runner to do this. Like you set up milestones for yourself, right? Like you started out, you said running 1 minute. And for anybody that hasn't run for 1 minute, and yeah, it is hard. Like you get to 40 seconds and you're like, please, dear God, 20 more seconds, right? And then, sorry, I'm projecting here because now it's easy for you to run for a minute. But like the point is you set up milestones. And a lot of times I see people, and when I'm coaching clients, I see people having this expectation that they're going to go to 0 to 100 in like overnight. And it takes that milestone approach to build up to that point of doing what you want to do, running a marathon, right? So that's equatable onto other pieces in life.
I hear so many people say, I can never run a marathon, or I could never run a 5K. And I mean, if I can do it, I swear to God, anybody can do it, because it's just a matter of conditioning and training yourself. And like you said, making those little goals. And I've been in sales almost my whole career, and it's a very goal-oriented job, right? And so I'm used to setting goals, and I'm used to, okay, I need to do this by this date to then get this by this date. And so I've always been very goal oriented. And to me, there is nothing more addictive than meeting your goals, because you're like, I rocked that, I met that goal or whatever. And then it's like, okay, what am I going to do now? And what am I going to do next? And so I think you're right. It's all about just taking those steps to get you to where you want to be. And you can't expect nobody, not even the most conditioned athlete in the world, can go out and just do something brand new they've never done before and be really good at it. I mean, they might be able to do it once, but they can't do that continuously. So everybody has started out at the bottom and had to work their way into, where they are now. So it's absolutely. And I think that's what I like about it, is that it is like little steps that get you better and better each time. And it's really measurable.
Yeah, it is really measurable. Now, the other piece that you talked about, and I think is so important too, is you talked about almost like this tribe that you have, right? Like these people that you hang out with are other runners or other athletes, and they enjoy doing activity. One of the things that I found in my life is you become like the 5 people you hang out with the most. And so therefore, if I'm wanting to be more athletic, I have to look at who are the 5 people in my envelope, and am I surrounding myself with people that don't like to do activity, because if that's the case, then like they're not responsible for me. I'm responsible for making those decisions. But to your point, it's a lot easier when someone else says, hey, I'm going to sign up for this race. Do you want to do it with me? Right. And there's something to that. So tell me, like, how did you go about? Because like you didn't have all these runner friends to begin with, did you?
No, it's funny. I also think that people get very intimidated when they think about a running group or a running club or something like that. And now I think when I started, it was a little different, but now, you have like breweries that have like run groups and whatever. So it's a little less intimidating, but yeah, there's a running club here where I live. And there's running clubs, in every city and every town. And I think it can be intimidating if you've never been and you show up and you're like, everybody's going to be faster than me or whatever. And that's not true. First, I went to a run club for the first time, and it was the day after the Boston Marathon bombing. And I went to a hill run. And I mean, this is like people running up and down hills on purpose to train. And I'll never forget,
that's funny, on purpose.
Yes. And I'm like, what? I'm here I am at this hill run. And I thought, well, I might be the last one, down that's finished or whatever. But it was so funny. My friend Nicole, and I hope she listens to this, she was there, and she's like this very svelte, beautiful, tall, thin. She looks like a runner. She just looks so fit. And she was telling a story at this group run about how she had done a half marathon a couple weekends before and like threw a temper tantrum and sat down and cried in the middle of it. And I was like, oh my God, she looks like she would never do that. Like, I was totally judging her, like by the way she looked, thinking she's just amazing and probably never has any issues ever. And she said she had like a temper tantrum and sat down in the middle of a race. And I was like, okay, well, if she can do that, then, we're all human. Right. And I think that sometimes when you get in these environments where you feel like, oh, everybody's got it figured out and I don't, they really don't. And because you don't either. And so you just got to show up and you will find these people who are with you. And it was funny that night I found this friend, Sarah, who she was like struggling kind of that night. And so her and I kind of connected and we became friends. And I started going every week. And then I started going to the other group. And so it's like in no time, I had surrounded myself with a lot of people that were doing amazing things. I mean, some of these people are running 100-mile races and 50-mile races. And the next thing you know, people are asking me, when are you going to do a marathon? And I was like, I'm never going to do that. But, here I am, I've done 6. So it's like, you just, I think you have to like, let go of some of that fear and worrying about what other people are going to think of you, because nobody's really thinking about you, and just let go of that and go with it and have fun and realize that just because somebody looks amazing, like they're the most incredible athlete, I mean, they got stuff going on too, and nobody's got it all figured out.
That is so true, Robyn. And that, you talked about comparison earlier, and that's one of the things that, I think you do some comparison here or there, but like you kind of work through that fairly quickly and then go, nope, this is right. Like I'm going to go forward and do this for me. And you even said that I'm running for me, not for anyone else. And this comparison game can stop us in our tracks from moving forward. And so I love that message of don't compare, just be who you are, show up, do the best you can, and look at other people for support and start talking about like with those other people, because then you're going to find out that they don't have it all together either, right? Like we're all just a little bit of I don't want to say a mess, but we're all just a little bit of like, we're all growing, we're all learning, we're all trying to do this thing called life. And so like, Robyn, you live somewhere else now, right? And I want to go back because for you, this isn't quite as intriguing, but this is someone that right after college, you worked for which part of the government?
I worked in the intelligence community. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you worked in the intelligence community and you picked up and moved and went to work for the freaking CIA and didn't know anyone, right? Like I look at that and you're like, oh, I worked for the government, right? Like now I'm not like downing you when I say that, but it's like that was huge, right? I didn't know anybody that worked for the FBI or for the CIA or anything like that. Yeah. And so you did that all on your own, didn't know anybody. And then that led to all of these other things. And now you reside in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And in Wilmington by the beach. And so tell me, like, you're in sales, you love people. And so tell me, like, from a professional perspective, what's kept you in sales so long? Because I love sales too, because it's just about
Yeah.
connecting.
Yeah. Well, for me, sales is about problem solving. And
Mm,
I absolutely love problem solving. And I never really knew this about myself and had really no clue. It kind of like clicked for me a couple of years ago when I worked for a company where all we did every day was try to figure out how we were going to fit a square peg into a round hole. And I really found that challenging, and working, I still work in the government space a lot, and it's really challenging. It's like always a brick wall in front of your face. And how do I get around this? And how do I find a way to work in this environment? And so that part of sales I really like. It's like problem solving. And I look at it as I'm helping somebody figure out how to do whatever it is they need to do with whatever it is that I have to sell them. And so, and I also love people. I love learning about people. I like organizational dynamics and just understanding just different things about people and their personalities. I find that very intriguing, and just trying to, and even the hardest person in the world, trying to break that person and get them to like me and talk to me. I
yeah.
find that challenging. Some people really, it's harder with some than others, but you can always trying to have that challenge of always finding a way to get them to talk to you.
Yeah.
So I really like that. And I like I said earlier, the goal setting of sales. And I think it's as close as you can get to having your own business without having your own business, because you really are responsible for your salary. You have a more say-so in how much you earn, and you're not being told this is what you're worth and what you're going to earn. You are able to really go beyond that. And if you are a hustler and you want to do well, you can, that's the thing about sales is the goals. That's always like, okay, there's my goal, here's my stretch goal, and here's my even further stretch goal. And so there's always that kind of opportunity to really go beyond what they have told you can make money wise. And so I think that to me really appeals. I really like being able to say that, this is what I want, and I don't want to be told how much money I can make or cannot make. So that's kind of why I like it, is that it's just very goal oriented, and it's about my performance and what I can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Which actually bleeds over into the running, into all of those avenues that you've chosen, right, in your life. And so let me ask you, kind of as we come towards the last part here, if you had to look at all the things in your life and the steadfastness that you've had around who you are and showing up for yourself and doing those things that fill your bucket, right? Like setting the goals, doing those things that help you move forward in life. What would you say, like, if you could tell all the listeners, because guess what, you get to, like 3 things that have really helped you that you think would transfer and help them as they looked at trying to reach their goals? What are 3 things you would recommend to them?
I think that don't be afraid to set goals for yourself. If you don't reach them, that's okay. There's been so many times that I haven't reached a goal. And also, I think it's good to set A, B, and C goals. We do that a lot in running because, things can change. The conditions can be changeable. You may not feel that great that day. So having more than one goal. So if you say, I'm going to do A, and that's your only goal, and you don't meet it and you have incredible disappointment, well, there's nothing wrong with having a B and C goal. So if you can't meet A, what's the next phase that I would want to meet? Or if I can't meet B, then what's my C goal? So a lot of times in running, people will say, my C goal is to finish, and my B goal is to finish in this time, and my A goal is to have this time. And so those are kind of like really good goals, because if it's 95 degrees outside, you're not going to meet your A goal probably. And so it's being able to have, like, don't set yourself up with a goal that, if you don't meet it, it's going to be devastating to you. And I also think don't be afraid to set up goals for yourself, because if you don't make it, it's okay. At least you tried and you got close. And also don't let other people's success or lack of or whatever affect anything that you're doing. I mean, I saw a saying the other day that, clap for people that reach success before you do. And I think that is so true, that somebody else may be reaching their goal, and that is awesome. And to me, I'm very motivated by that. And don't compare yourself to them, because everybody's in a different place. So, while you might be like getting closer to your goal and they've already met their goal, well, there might be something that you've done that they haven't done yet. So don't
Yeah.
worry about that and stay away from comparing yourself. And I say all the time to be your own best friend. You would not tell your best friend to compare themselves to somebody else. So don't do
Yeah.
it to yourself. And so I think even in sales, you look at your compatriots and your coworkers and you're like, they're having so much success. And and I get it too. I'm like, God, I wish I could, do what they're doing. And so I call them up. What are you doing? Tell me what you're doing that I can probably learn from, instead of sitting back and like resenting what, how their success or how they're doing it. And I know sometimes, I'm not perfect. There's times when I'm like, oh, I wish I could do that or whatever. But I think just kind of turning it around and saying, well, let me find out, what they're doing that maybe I can incorporate. And so just not being afraid and not being afraid to set a couple of goals, A, B, and C, and then just, looking at other people's success and thinking, how can I maybe use some of the tools they're doing instead of resenting what they're doing?
Yeah. And thank you, Robyn, because when I look at the ABC, like the C is really the goal. And then the next one to finish the race with this time is the stretch goal, potentially, right? It doesn't have to be stretch goal. It could be stretch goal. And then the next one to finish in this time is the next stretch goal. Because to your point, sometimes there are some external factors that play into that, and owning the 100% responsibility. Even in the book, Atomic Habits, I don't know, have you read that book? It's phenomenal. You'll put it on your list. That's one you would really appreciate. And in Atomic Habits, he talks about how it's not about like, okay, I'm going to become a runner, and so I'm going to go run a marathon tomorrow. It's about you run for 5 minutes, right? And or 6 minutes. And in those 6 minutes, you actually run 2 minutes and you've walked. Well, so that'd be 8 minutes. I can't do simple math. And then you walk 3 minutes, right? And by doing that, you've now run 2 more minutes than you would have yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just taking that next step until it becomes a part of who you are. And the habit is so ingrained that because I don't know about you, but I have like this little routine in the morning that's become a habit, that when I get in the shower, I first wipe my makeup off. I wash my hair, I put conditioner in it, I wash my face, I shave my leg, like I have an order to things that I don't even have to think about. I just do it. And when it gets out of order, I get a little wonky, but that's what I'm hearing you say is kind of that same philosophy that he talks about in Atomic Habits. Just start, right? And then you're doing more than you did the day before.
There's a runner that I follow that says all the time, don't think, just go. And it's funny because the hardest part about running is just getting out the front door of your own house. And because once you meet your runner friends and you start running, then it's fine. And it's funny, I've taken up swimming this past year, and I haven't really ever swam, like every couple days or whatever. And swimming is even harder to get to, especially when it's cold out. To know that you're going to go plunge yourself in water somewhere, and it's just don't think, just go. And then when you get there and you're finished in like an hour, less than an hour, and it's like you feel great, and it's like, so I'm so glad I went, because if I would have just laid there in the bed and thought about it, and not ever gone, then I kind of feel like I missed out, or I feel guilty about not getting out there and doing what's good for my own brain health. And I had the same thing this morning. I was laying there at 5:30 in the morning going, I could just try to go back to sleep instead of getting up. But I was like, I'm awake, I'm getting up, I'm getting out the door. And that is the hardest part. It really is.
Yeah. And Robyn, what I love about that is I talk about, we have our superpower, and our superpower is the power to choose. And in the moment, because the law of cause and effect says you're always in cause, right? Like you're always in cause. And so what effect you want determines the actions. And so in that moment, it's about stepping back and saying, what effect do I want? And therefore I'm going to choose this option and get up and go run. Right. And so thank you.
It's the same thing in a race too. When you're in a race, and this has happened to me a few times, you're like pushing, your lungs are bursting. You're like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, or if I want to keep doing this. I just want to sit down on the side and give up, or I want to slow down. And I think to myself, when I get done with this race and I look at my time and I think about how I ran, am I going to be disappointed in myself if I let up right now? And so I think about that a lot, especially, in a shorter race where I might have an opportunity for an age group win or something. I'm like, if I if I slow up right now, I might miss the podium, And so even though it's just a local amateur race, I'm not winning anything, but maybe like a coupon to a running store.
Right. It's that you did it.
Yeah. And so I think, when you're, not only just getting yourself up and get going, but when you're in that task, whether it be running or working or whatever, just thinking about, I want to keep this quality going because I'm going to be disappointed in myself if I let up when I'm finished. And when I meet my goal, I'm going to say, not only did I meet my goal, but I did great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so, Robyn, to kind of close it up, I want to ask if you would list off the marathons that you've done. I know one of them, you did the virtual Boston Marathon during COVID, and you actually came to Sandpoint because my best friend Barb, who's been on this podcast, and I were your Sherpas, which, by the way, was a blast, and followed you around in the car and handed out drinks and liquid IVs and all those kinds of things to you. But can you just list off for us, what are the marathons that you've done?
So I'm doing a series called the World Marathon Majors. And so those consist of 6 races. So I've done London. I did the London Marathon when for my 50th birthday. And I've done Chicago, and I ran Chicago for a charity, a veterans charity. And then I ran Berlin in Germany. And then I ran Boston, which is, I had the issue with the COVID and Boston got canceled. I also ran for a charity for there. I raised almost $12,000 or a little over $12,000 for Boston.
That's great.
And so I did the virtual marathon in Sandpoint, which was super fun. And, Barb and y'all laid out a course for me, and it was great because it was so hot where I live, and being able to do it in Sandpoint was lovely. The weather was really nice. And then I ran the actual Boston Marathon, the one they had last fall. So I am in the process now of training for New York. And so that will be my 5th of the World Marathon Majors. And then the only one I will have left is Tokyo. And Tokyo is going to be probably a couple years down the road because they've canceled it the last couple of years because of COVID. So it's a little backed up. But once I get those 6 done, I will get a really big medal, and it's going to be a really big accomplishment for me. I'm super excited about it. It's been a goal I have been working on for 6 years now. And, I'm hoping to be done before I'm 60. So that's my current goal. So, but I'll be running New York City Marathon in November. Excited.
And Robyn, I think that's so awesome because you're between the 50 and 60, right? And so showing to people you don't have to be 22 to start running. And I just love that. And so let's make a commitment to each other that when you're done with Tokyo, that we have you back on, and let's share the statistics that you did. So Robyn, if somebody does want to follow you and your running experiences, where would be a good place for them to go?
Well, I'm on Instagram. I have an open account on there, and my handle is beachy_runner. So I live near the beach. Happy to have folks follow me on there if you want to. And if you want to comment or say anything, I'm always open to hearing anything, or DM me if you want to ask me about running or anything else. I'm happy to respond.
Yeah, that's great, Robyn. I'm so excited. And it's, as always, it's such a pleasure to have a conversation with you. And with that, I just want to say thank you for your time and for coming on and talking about kind of what you do to live your lit up life and how you've kind of shown up for yourself. And that's really important, an important message. So with that, my name's Debbie Heiser. If you would like to speak to me a little bit more, please go out to my website at www.leadyourlituplife.com and sign up for a 30-minute consult. I promise you will have more clarity after that 30 minutes than you did before. And no pressure, just would be great to have a conversation. And with that, it's a wrap. Everybody have a fabulous week, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
See the colors of the rain, find your own kind of happy. See the colors of